Well, if I record all my videos like this, it's actually not that bad. Hey friends, hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to be covering more Oversimplified. I have been loving this history rabbit hole I'm going down, although it's weird. Today I'm covering a topic that I can't really mention early in the video. Welcome back, friends, and a special welcome to all the new friends out there. I'm YoBGS. Don't mind this. It was to make some kids happy, but today I'm looking at a video that a lot of you have requested, but when you request it, it ends up in my spam folder. I'm showing it up there. Hopefully that's not going to bother the algorithm too much, but it is Oversimplified's video covering this dude. Now, I think we're far enough in the video that I can tell you that yes, we're covering Oversimplified's series on Hitler. If you want to see me do part 2 of this, please make sure to leave a like and a comment, because Lord knows YouTube will not want to show this video to anyone. Also, if you could subscribe, it would help me out more than you know, and I appreciate it more than you can imagine. At 70K, I'm going to do a challenge that proves just how much of a geography noob I am. But here we go.
Look at this baby. So gentle. So innocent.
No.
You'd think this child would grow up to become a good man. An honest man. Well, think again.
Okay, I wasn't expecting this, like, MLG compilation explosion right out of the gate.
Think again.
Literally.
Hitler was born Adolphus Hitler in 1889 in a small town. Hitler was born Adolphus Hitler in...
More like a doofus. LMAO, hit like and subscribe. He did that, not me. Yeah, and so it is worth noting that at this point I've checked out World War II, the Russian revolutions, a lot of American and French stuff, and I don't know, you know, we're on like a military leader kick right now, right? I just covered the Napoleonic War, so I'm thinking maybe this could be good subject to delve into.
1889 in a small town in Austria-Hungary. His father, Alois Schicklgruber, was born out of wedlock, but eventually changed his name to that of his stepfather, becoming Alois Hitler. Alois was a mid-level Austrian customs officer, not really rolling in cash, but certainly rolling in women. He married a rich, older lady, but then immediately started having affairs.
Wait, why was he rolling in women? Because he was a customs officer, or is that a joke?
Including one with a much younger house servant. A few years later, he left his sick wife to be with his mistress, but since the Catholic Church didn't allow divorce at the time, he couldn't marry her. So he waited for his old wife to die and had a child in the meantime. Then his wife died, so he married his mistress and had another child, but then his new wife got sick, so he employed his much younger cousin, Clara, to take care of her. Then when his new wife died, he immediately got Clara, his cousin, pregnant, and then married her, in that order.
And he's like that 18 kids and counting thing where he's naming all the kids with the same first letter. I'm not saying that that's necessarily evil, but, you know, 18 kids and counting and the Hitler family. So, not great evidence to go off of.
You rock star. Clara and Alois had 3 children together, who all tragically died while in infancy. So when the 4th child, Adolf, came along, Clara spoiled him rotten. The Hitlers had 2 more kids, and the family moved around a few times, meaning Adolf had to attend 5 different elementary schools. Society 101, nationalism and why it's so great. That does strike me as a... Well, and maybe that was part of the problem, right? Because, you know, I know from moving around a lot, my parents did when I was growing up, you transfer schools a bunch and you end up learning the same thing over and over because different grades teach it in different states and stuff. So maybe he just got nationalism in every single history class he was in, and that's why he was all about it. Schools. Adolf's father was strict, quick to anger, and took most of it out on the eldest son until he had enough and ran away at the age of 14, leaving 7-year-old Adolf to do most of the chores and get berated by his father.
Oversimplified really likes animating people getting spanked. I'm not, you know, not judging, but just pointing out.
The result was a difficult relationship with his dad while he was super attached to his mother, who worried over him and his health excessively. Hitler did well in school at first. His grades were good and his teachers praised him. He was popular with the other kids and enjoyed gathering them together to play war games. He also loved reading, and particularly...
Oh my god! Yes, very interesting subject matter there.
He was popular with the other kids and enjoyed gathering them together to play war games. He also loved reading and particularly liked stories about cowboys and Indians. As he grew older though, he started to get into trouble. He was caught smoking once,
Now, to me that's interesting because
the implication there is that it was American literature that gave him the well, it didn't give him that mentality, but it was certainly something he was drawn to as a kid. Because did they have cowboys anywhere else in the world? Obviously they had Indians in India, but like, is that, so he was strictly into American lit, which again, just interesting to know.
Organized a raid on a local orchard, tormented his
He
pro-Austria...
raided an orchard?
Organized a raid on a local orchard, tormented his pro-Austria religion teacher with symbolic gestures, displaying his allegiance to the idea of united Germanic people under a greater German state in defiance of Habsburg Austria. You know, the usual. All of this enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. The area of Austria...
Oh, I recognize that joke now. Isn't there something in the World War II video where Hitler says, like, please don't, my parents punished me severely or something?
That Hitler lived in was once part of the German Confederation, and many of the people who lived there considered themselves to be German. Adolf tended to just go against whatever his father said, and since his father was an Austrian public official, Hitler got big into German nationalism. This enraged Adolf's father, who punished him severely. Around this time...
So much spanking! It's like Oversimplified knew this video was going to get demonetized and just decided to go a whole hog on it.
Tragedy struck. His 6-year-old brother, whom he loved a lot, died of measles when Adolf was 10, and was buried in the cemetery just across from their home. Around this time, neighbors reported a change in the young boy. Strange behaviors such as talking to trees and staying up late staring at the stars from the cemetery walls. He lost interest in religion, and his school grades started to decline, which enraged his father, who punished him severely. It also didn't help that he had just entered...
Also, for some reason, the "you're not a star" hit me worse than like the F minus.
Entered high school, and the cool city boys treated him like a rural peasant. He had to repeat a grade and had little interest in most school subjects, instead spending his time reading.
Yep, I did see Social Darwinism and Why Some People Are Just Better Than Others. Probably, again, not a lesson at least he's sleeping through
interest in most school subjects, instead spending his time reading and drawing, which he was quite good at. One day his father said, "Son, someday you'll be a big balls public official like me." And Adolf replied, "No, father, I'm going to become an artist and soar high above the clouds with the eagles." This enraged his father, but by this time he was an old...
Okay, thank God, I was worried there.
Eagles. This enraged his father, but by this time he was an old-ass man, so he just sort of let it go. And then died of a lung hemorrhage. Hitler just about passed his final semester, and celebrated in the typical way, by getting blackout drunk and wiping his ass with the certificate. However, he didn't...
Maybe that's why when I got my master's, they didn't give us our diploma on graduation day. No, honestly, the reason they didn't give you your diploma on graduation day was they wanted to check and make sure all your bills were paid. Then you could get your diploma in the mail eventually.
Take the overall final school exam.
Social Darwinism and nationalism are great and all. Oh, social Darwinism and nationalism are great and all, but just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting you comment genocide or anything. Let's hope no one will ever be of major historical significance is absent for this particular lesson. By the way, has anyone seen Adam?
Dead just dropping out. The now 16-year-old boy was unemployed, without much purpose in life, and for the next 3 years, he stayed that way. He spent most of his time at the opera with his only friend, August Kubizek. Kubizek later wrote his memories of the young Hitler, and said he was passionately interested in many things, felt he was in many ways better than others his age, was quick to anger just like his father, and an incredible speaker once he was ranting. When he was 18, he said
an incredible speaker once he was ranting. So that implies, like, you talking to him normally, he would have trouble gathering his thoughts, but like then, if you called him out for not being able to make his point, and he got fired up, then he would actually be coherent.
Said goodbye to his mother and went to Vienna to take the entrance exam for art school. He failed.
Aww.
Soon after, he had to return home. His mother was sick, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. Hitler stayed by her side, and when she eventually died, the family doctor said he had never seen someone so overwhelmed with grief as Hitler was. Then Hitler returned to Vienna, still hoping to find a career in the arts.
It's fair to understand, like, the grief, because his mom was the one outlet of, like, you know, not abuse, at least it seemed. And maybe his brother was, but his brother obviously died so relatively young. And I was wondering, like, what if someone had made this video, but claimed this story was a different world leader? Only because knowing that this is Hitler's story, it makes it difficult to feel sympathy for the protagonist. But, like, if you said this was any other leader who went on to leave a positive legacy, it would be interesting to see how people react to this initial storyline, because at least at this point, he's not a garbage person. I mean, he stole some apples, and now he's overcome with grief, but he hasn't done anything irredeemable to this point anyway.
But he never did. Instead, without parental support, Hitler ended up on the streets. Now in his early 20s, he spent a few rough years living in and out of homeless shelters, making what little he could from selling postcards he painted. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when and how Hitler's extreme ideological beliefs formed, but his time in Vienna would have certainly played a role. Anti-Semitism was widespread in the city. The mayor, whom Hitler supported, was an outspoken anti-Semite. There were many
That is also the most ridiculous. This is the most ridiculously opulent necklace of medals I've ever seen. And I've seen those pictures of like the North Korean military where they literally have medals like down the leg of their pants.
Supported was an outspoken anti-Semite. There were many right-wing anti-Semitic newsletters, which Hitler took a keen interest in. He bought into the conspiracy theories and became a firm believer in the idea that there are many races in constant struggle with one another, the purest of which...
I mean, it really doesn't look like... In the oversimplified pyramid of race, it looks like everyone is fairly equal, apart from the pyramid part.
Many races in
they all
constant
look the
struggle with
same.
one another, the purest of which were the German Aryan people, and the worst of which, he believed, were Jews. Since Austria-Hungary was a multi-ethnic empire full of lesser races, Hitler wasn't a fan. So when he was 24, he moved to Munich in Germany to avoid doing military service, and for one more year he was a drifter on the streets, until something huge happened. In 1914, long-standing tensions in Europe erupted into the First World War. Crowds across Europe celebrated the news. Within days, Hitler volunteered for the German army. The war gave him a purpose in life. His fellow soldiers gave him friendship.
And he's the only one... Okay, again, knowing who he is, the fact that everyone is just... Like, he looks like he was photoshopped into this picture almost. You know what I mean? Everyone's doing one... Well, I guess this guy in the back who kind of looks like Danny Gonzalez is doing the same thing that Hitler's doing. But, like, just that 1,000-yard stare. I'm not convinced this isn't Danny Gonzalez, by the way.
And brotherhood. Despite the horrors of war, Hitler considered it to be the best time of his life. He was reportedly a brave soldier and was awarded the Iron Cross, first class. He was also very lucky and had many close encounters with death. His luck ran out in 1916, however, when an artillery shell injured his leg. He went back to Germany to recover and was outraged to find a general apathetic anti-war attitude among the exhausted and hungry German populace. With the war turning against Germany, he returned to the front lines, but was temporarily blinded by a British gas attack in 1918. A month later, still recovering in hospital.
It feels like he was one of those people that in his early 20s was extraordinarily gullible. And I think everyone who's gone through their early 20s knows that it can be really hard to not get like roped into something. Yeah, I'm thinking about all those kids who go away to college, they go to Political Science 101, and they immediately come home acting like they know better than everyone, you know? They're like, at Thanksgiving, like, history's written by the winners, man. And it's like, yeah, no, everyone knows. You've not broken any new ground here, but he got so zealous into what he got into, and then the experience of being in war and being injured multiple times as a part of like the military complex is only going to reinforce those beliefs.
Hitler learned of Germany's defeat and surrender. The terms of the peace treaty were tough on Germany. It had to pay a lot of money and lose a lot of soldiers. These conditions weakened Germany and
$800 billion. And not only that, but this video is 5 years old. That's like $800 billion in 5 years ago money, which is like over $1 trillion now.
Hated the German people. Europe's borders changed after the war too. New countries were formed out of Russia's lost territory, Austria-Hungary was dissolved, and there was one big new country splitting Germany into two. Hitler, seeing the country he loved humiliated like this, said that hatred grew in him for those responsible, by which he meant communists and Jews, who he believed had stabbed Germany in the back by spreading dissent and anti-war propaganda back home.
No, I mean, obviously, I'm not breaking any new ground here by being like, that's not true. But that's the other thing. Being an injured vet, which he was, you know, he was injured in combat and then ended up having to spend a lot of time. I don't want to make that be the thing that I'm talking over either. But again, having been injured in combat, chances are in recovery and in the post-war efforts, he was going to spend time with a lot of other people who were injured in combat as well, giving a very narrow worldview, which, again, for somebody who had already been kind of taken into a sort of radical ideology, only being around the most vocal of people reinforcing that belief is just going to make it worse, which I'm sure we're going to see in part 2. But again, if you liked this video, please make sure to like it and comment, because yeah, YouTube is not going to look favorably on a video just called Hitler. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Take care, my friends, and I will see you in the next one. And hopefully I won't have a mohawk anymore.